that's going to be recorded. So we will be starting. So thank you again for joining us, for being on time. Henok, do you want to take it over?
Yeah, definitely. So, just for those of you that weren't here, I'm Henok. I'm a junior at Yale, doing economics, also pursuing an education studies minor. Plan to pursue real estate post-graduation. And so for those of you that were here, I do hope that the last session was useful to you. So definitely won't repeat some of the philosophical material that we talked about last time. But I would just say for everyone here, definitely keep our vision of flourishing and our vision of education and participating in a divinely ordered world in mind as you all, take classes and go to school and educate yourselves. And so the more we tap into a childlike rather than a childish fascination with the world and intentionally and thoughtfully employ our God-given dominion over the earth as sub-creators, the easier this vision of education is to actually implement. And so today, just wanted to talk about a few actionable items for your college application. So wanted to focus on the differences between the SAT and SAT, a little bit about navigating coursework, what classes to choose, and then also just give you guys a few ideas for your summer activities or your extracurriculars. So definitely it is being recorded, but we'll definitely encourage you guys to take notes just so towards the end. It is a smaller group today, so I did want to focus more on answering more of your guys' questions. So I did want to make the session more interactive than the last one. And so I'd also hope that this information would be useful to freshmen or sophomores, just to give you a sense of what's required to get into the school of your choice. So with that, just wanted to talk a bit about testing first and the differences between the SAT and the ACT. And so just some, general advice. Just want to talk you guys through, which one to pick. What are the differences between them? So last time we talked a bit about, someone asked, should I, take a test if it's optional or if my school is test optional? And so just to make this totally clear, all of you should take at least one test and know your score. And so even if some of the schools that you're applying to are test optional, you should definitely make the effort to take that test. And so when we talk about resumes, when you send in applications for a job and you send in your resume, if you leave your GPA off, then the company will assume your GPA is very bad, less than 3.0. And so it's just an economic principle. If everyone is sending something in or everyone is revealing something about themselves and then you don't, it looks badly on you. It looks as if your score is worse than the average, if that makes sense. So if my hope would be that, most of you are at least average or above. And so if that's the case, then definitely take your test, make the steps to improve your scores and then send them in rather than, saying, oh, my school is test optional. I'm not just going to send anything. So just basically seize any opportunity to distinguish yourselves from, the rest of the talent pool that you're competing against. And then just like we talked about last time, my second piece of advice would just be to go to either the Barnes & Noble closest to you or just, through Amazon, pick up a copy of the official SAT or ACT book as soon as you can. And so I have a couple photos of what those books actually look like. And so the key thing here is just that it'll say the official ACT prep guide or the official SAT study guide, as long as it says the official one. you guys should be good to go ahead and get that. And so these practice books have a lot of introductory material and a lot of explanation as to how to tackle like the math section, the English section, the writing section. And so those are very helpful for, people in general to sort of understand what the test is looking for and how to best manage your time. And then just a bit on the writing section, to the extent that you guys can go in and take your tests, I would definitely encourage all of you to complete the essay portion. A lot of the more competitive schools will ask for you to submit a test with the writing portion. So definitely don't skimp on that. And just like we talked about, a sort of essay structure with, a story or introduction, and then some backup, and then back to that initial story. I would definitely encourage you guys to use that, essay structure in any of your essays, including the one for this writing section. And so the key here for that is just to take notes before you start writing your timed essay, because it's under a time limit, and then have a clear thesis, which you introduce in the first paragraph, and then support that thesis in the middle paragraphs. And so just like I said, feel free to go back to the recording for the first session and look at, how to write an essay in general. And I hope that was clear. Okay, and then now I just want to talk a bit about, for those of you that are thinking about this, like what's the difference between the SAT and the ACT? What are the pros and cons? What does that, imply or require of me? And so just in my personal experience, I did find the ACT to be a bit easier. And so because most of you through your school, I think probably by your sophomore year, most of you will have taken a PSAT. And so that'll give you a good benchmark as to, what you could potentially score on the SAT. That's not the case with the ACT. And so I would encourage all of my, especially my juniors at this point, but maybe my sophomores, if you guys want to start early, but just go ahead and, grab an ACT practice book and take one of the tests from the back and see how you score. And so just as far as what separates the SAT and the ACT, so the SAT has a two-parted math section. And so half of the math is going to be with a calculator. So it's more number intense. And then the other half is non-calculator based. So more intuitive, slightly easier, if that makes sense. And so what this means for just as far as the differences between the two tests, the SAT calculator section is going to be significantly harder than the ACT math section overall. And so the ACT math section is largely, by and large, intuitive. And so as long as you understand basic like geometrical principles, then you'll probably be okay. And then as far as the ACT, I also found the English and reading sections easier. The only, the only sort of dark horse was that the ACT science section was pretty challenging, at least for me personally. And so the science section in the ACT just requires you to, form hypotheses, draw conclusions from graphs, and, pick the best sort of experiment for a certain like dependent and independent variable. And so I guess that'd be one thing to consider. Namely that the ACT has a science section, which was most difficult for me, but the ACT has a more difficult math section. And so really up to you guys to, sort of take some time out of your schedule and take both, especially if your school doesn't provide an ACT prep book, and spend a Saturday afternoon testing yourself and see which one makes the most sense for you. So just talking about some of the differences, you really just, like I said, need to take both. And hopefully you take a SAT test through your school, and you can sort of have benchmark of what your score is. And then obviously the key to improving for any test taking, test taking is a skill. And so it's something that you learn and get better at with practice. And so for my juniors, now is really the time to start taking your tests. So the ACT prep book is one way. They usually have 3 to 4 practice tests in the back, but you can also Google like past years ACT practice tests, and you can download them in a file. They're just catalogs all the way from like 2021 all the way for the past like 20 or 30 years tests. And you'll probably be okay taking the past like 5 or 6 years tests. You can find all of that on Google online. But if you have like trouble finding that, feel free to text me over the WhatsApp, and we can chat about that. Another thing to think about would just be if your family is able and willing. There's a practice test like tutoring center in Alexandria. They're called Huntington Test Prep. Personally found them very helpful, very motivating as I prepared for my ACT. And then I'm also happy to tutor for testing if that's something that any of you guys would like to do. Okay, that was testing. I hope that was clear. And then I'm just going to talk a bit about some of the differences between the types of schools you can apply to. So there are 3 major types of schools you can apply to. They're like research schools. So these are like distinguished by their tiers. So there are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 research schools. These tend to be, STEM heavy, medicine focused, tend to be larger, more public institutions. So because of their size, they tend to have a less and smaller undergraduate focus, but they offer more opportunities for research with professors as a package of their size. So these, obviously Johns Hopkins comes to mind. Schools like that are these research heavy schools. And then next we have liberal arts schools. So obviously Yale is one of them. Most of the Ivies are, these are humanities focused seminar style schools, mainly across the East Coast, including most of the Ivies and a few others like Amherst, Bowdoin, and Williams. And these are the schools that, if you were here last time, these are the schools that offer you flying programs. And so definitely encourage all of you to look at some of those. And then finally, you have, your typical business schools like Wharton, University of Wisconsin, UVA, these fully parsed out state schools that will teach you, not just economics, but finance and accounting at an undergraduate level. And so as far as, how you should create a college list and, work through what colleges you'll end up applying to, really would just recommend all of you to apply to at least a few, liberal arts schools, part of which is just, we talked a lot about a vision of education last time, and sort of wanting to have a breadth of learning and wanting to expand your horizons. I think a liberal arts school would definitely be helpful and intentional in that aspect. I'd also recommend applying to at least a few liberal arts schools for their flying programs. These schools really are very hungry for diverse students, especially smart and talented diverse students. So your chances of getting in will also be higher with these, Amherst, Bowdoin, Williams type schools. And then finally, I did want to talk a bit about competition at schools in general. And so when you think about like, okay, let's say like you want to study business or finance, and Wharton is at the top of the list and you somehow get in, or you do get in after a lot of work. Well, now like Wharton is a business school. It's probably the most famous business school across, the country in terms of opportunities and strength and branding. And so you're put in a place where even if in high school you were, big fish in a little pond, now, you're a big fish in like a huge pond, and there are other bigger fishes like around you. And so there's definitely a sense of competition that you have to be aware of as you apply to these schools. Despite, how your ranking is in high school, that may not necessarily apply to your ranking in college. And depending on what type of person you are, some people take that as a very motivating thing. They're motivated by competition, and some people are, demotivated by it. And so I would just caution you as you make your college list to think about, for my field, is there going to be a lot of competition, and how am I going to react to that in my school? Am I the type of person to be motivated by that, or demotivated by that? And so that'd be probably, we talked about the 4 criteria last time, financial constraints, job demand and branding, personal freedom and communal freedom. I would just add that element of competition as well, and what your natural responses to that. And so as far as just creating your college list, Forbes, if you look up Forbes college list or college rankings, the Wall Street Journal college rankings, those are very good, like overall summaries of how colleges in the US are doing, and how they rank against each other, and they give a little blurb as to like what the school is good at. So as you guys are making your college list, you can definitely check the Forbes and Wall Street Journal rankings out. And then other resources in general are just like, you guys probably know these sites, but College Confidential and Reddit has a college sub that may be helpful to you. Okay, that was my note on college, especially the note on competition. And now I'm just going to give you guys some ideas for extracurriculars, and then we can open the floor up for questions, because that's my focus today. Okay, and then can everyone mute themselves? Okay, so for extracurriculars, I didn't talk too much about summer activities, what you should be doing, things like that. But really, the key with extracurriculars is not what you do. The key is how you do it, and why you do it, and how long you've done it. So you can do very ordinary things like supporting your family, like working as a cashier, and get into an Ivy, if that makes sense. But it's more a matter of how you present your experiences so far. That's important. And really, like I said last time, taking a very ordinary experience and making it very dramatic and reflective of your personal character, as well as your communal mission. So again, don't be utilitarian. Don't do things for college, but do them because you like them, and you have a reason that you're attracted to them. But just as far as just ideas, what are the things out there? I'll just go through this list and sort of explain what they are. So there's the Governor's School, and so this is essentially like I want to say 5 or 6 week program sponsored by the Virginia Department of Education, and say they take talented, smart kids who are in high school, and they put them in essentially not a summer camp, but more of like a summer session at different colleges across Virginia. So sometimes it's at like William and Mary, sometimes it's at like Tech, but basically they put you with a cohort of other, smart and talented high school sophomores and juniors, and you get to take, college level coursework with other people interested in your field, with very smart professors. And so I got a question recently about, a few like talent search programs in the mail. I would generally stay away from those types of, programs, and stick more to the programs that are free. The programs that are free tend to be more legitimate and backed by public institutions like our government. So the governor's school would be one really great way to focus and hone in on your one particular talent and area of interest. So they have like a medicine-based program or camp. They have like a humanities-based one. They have a theater-based one. So depending on your area of interest, you can definitely find a summer session in the governor's school that's appropriate for you. So that was the first thing. That's probably the most legitimate summer program you can do, especially in Virginia. The second one is MITES. So I may have mentioned this last time, but MITES is an MIT-sponsored summer camp. They take only diverse students from high school, and they essentially put them through a camp. They do some research. It'd be a great way to, sort of see if the school would be a right fit for you. And it also provides you, a funnel for if you're interested in tech and science and technology, an avenue not just to make friendships, but also perhaps to get a leg up in admissions come, senior year. So that'd be for my science-oriented folks. And then TASP is similar, but with a different focus on field. So TASP is a similar, like a summer session program. It switches from different schools every year, but they put you in a cohort of humanities interested students, and they put you with smart professors across the country. So you can be studying like literature, poetry, or philosophy with a cohort. And this is one of the more selective humanities programs. It also happens to be free. And so I would say the governor's school, MITES, and TASP for my very, ambitious and ambitious students out there would be good programs to look into for this or next summer. And then just a note on actual college-based summer sessions. Schools like Harvard, Yale, Duke, Cornell, and Johns Hopkins. All of these schools have summer sessions that you can go to, and you can live as a college student for anywhere from 5 to 8 weeks on the dorms in the summer. And so the first point about this is all of this counts for college credit. So it's not a waste of your time. The second point would be, it's a really great way to challenge yourself over your summer and see how you would stack up against, a student at that school. And then my third point would just be, these summer session programs are very good ways to demonstrate in your school. And so what I did personally is my junior year of high school, I applied for Yale summer session. I was very interested in the humanities. And so for that summer session, I took a philosophy class and a Shakespeare class. And so worked very, very hard. So not only did it count for, my time here, but I worked very hard in those classes with an eye towards and with the intent to get a letter of recommendation from that professor, so that when I applied for real, I would have the backing of a professor who was already at the school, if that makes sense. So for those of you that would like to end up at an Ivy or a competitive school, this is one way to sneak your way into the door, is to go to the summer session, pick a class that you really like and you think you can do well in, and then work very, very hard and get a letter of ask them towards the end of the school year for a letter of recommendation. Obviously, like we talked about, you can't just ask, you have to develop a relationship with them first, going to office hours, asking them questions. But this is one way that if you have a dream school, I definitely look into whether they have a summer session program and try and get a letter of recommendation from them. It's be one thing to think about, and it worked out for me. So I'm sure it worked for any of you guys as well. And then just moving down the list, research with the local professor is also something that you guys could do, especially for my STEM science-oriented folks. So just how you do this is, look at, the professors at George Mason, or like even Nova, and just really just send them a nicely worded email, introducing yourself, like how you found them, and then just your interest in their work. Like if they were doing recent research on, the health of minority populations, and you were interested in that because of X, Y, and Z, you explain that to them in your email, and see if like they want to do a Zoom meeting with you or grab coffee or something like that. That's how you, make connections with people that can help you in life. And LinkedIn is one way to think about that. Just create an account and then, look up professors at your school of choice. And then other ideas are just internships. So if you're looking for work, even if it's remote work or, unpaid work, personally, my first internship on my resume was unpaid. Indeed.com is a great way to look at job posts. And then LinkedIn as well is a good, site for looking at jobs. Just, type in your search criteria and it should come up with results. And then other ideas are just volunteering. If you guys are musically inclined, just choir or any sort of competitions in that regard. And then I also did want to mention trips to Ethiopia as something that you could potentially do. And so why I mention this is just that college admissions officers look favorably on people who have international experience and who broaden their horizons and have done so intentionally. And so for most of us, on this call who are Ethiopian, don't disregard, your parents wanting to bring you back to Ethiopia if that's something that, you're able to do. It'd be a very good way to sort of give a lot of thought and meditation to your heritage, as well as just giving you a lot of things to think about for your personal essay. And so as much as, we all want to be utilitarian monkeys and be running around doing all of this prestigious stuff, don't disregard going back home, as long as you're paying attention to your surroundings. And then obviously just keep in mind your test prep as a something you guys, especially my juniors, should be on top of. And so just a final note on athletics before we go into the Q&A would just be in terms of risk and in terms of thinking about your academic scholarship opportunities realistically. I do think sports is always a great way to develop, discipline and exercise and train both the mind and body, as well as develop like leadership skills and team building skills. I think just sort of, going off of our job market demand analogy from last time, the number of elite athletes compared to the number of open spots that are there for, professional athletes who are paid well is not great or not very high. And so I would just encourage all of you to, really take school seriously and apply yourself to school to the best of your ability, rather than putting all your eggs in one basket and aiming for a college scholarship through athletics. So not to discourage you or say like, you can't do sports or you have to quit. It's not at all that case. Doing sports and balancing that with your school and doing the both pretty well is very reflective of your time management. But just making that your one thing that you want to do is very, very risky. And I have friends who've gone that route, and like the differences between where I am now and where they are at now is stark. But I just wanted to mention that just so we're all realistic. But yeah, that was all I had, mostly an extension of what we talked about the first time, but really just want to spend a lot of time today taking questions, interacting with you guys. It is a smaller group. So to the extent that you have them, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Okay, Henok, do you want me to read the questions from the chat, or you will be able?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
So they said, I know a freshman who is worried because she's gotten low grades in the first and second quarter. How badly will this affect her chances seeing her grades have gotten better? So like I said last time, there's the important thing is that your grades are going up, and so there's an upward trajectory. So I would say to encourage her to not let this like defeat her, as long as like her grades are improving over time and she's taking more challenging courses per quarter. She should be okay. But there's a, like I mentioned last time, there's a portion of the Common App that'll allow you to explain any extenuating circumstances. So if this was family-based or something happened, or she had family obligations, or she went through like an illness or a family illness, then she should take the steps to defend herself and explain why her grades were low. But that's what I would say. Okay, and then someone asked, what grade did you start studying for the SAT? Yeah, good question. So I did not touch any testing material until like winter of my junior year. So my suggestion would be to work very hard in school, pay attention in your math classes, learn how to write an essay, learn how to read. Most of us know how to read physically, but not like philosophically, if that makes sense. So, pay attention in your classes, do well, challenge yourself, and you will set yourself up well for retaining all the information you need for the testing. So I would say pay attention in school, first year and sophomore year, and then start thinking about testing junior year, like start of junior year or winter junior year. So yeah, I would say start junior year, but until then you can, lay the foundation right and pay attention in your classes. Yeah, so, and then someone asked, are internships typically done during the summer? Also, most of the internships are for college students who have a diploma. I can't seem to find any related to high school students. That's a good question. What I would say is just like we talked about last time, networking is very important. And so there are a lot of companies who do take interns, but they won't do a job posting. And so one way to get around this is by looking for internships that are unpaid. And so you can just, search your area of expertise and hopefully search them in a way that, makes it clear that, the job isn't offering any payment. The other way is just to find companies or firms that you like, and then network with them, send an email to somebody who's, lower on the totem pole, introduce yourself, say how you found them, what interests you in the company, and then just doing it that way. I wouldn't say internships are totally necessary in high school. If you find them or if you have a family connection, I would definitely leverage that. But I didn't have any internships as I was applying to college. I did other stuff like the summer session at Yale, and just like doing club stuff and volunteering stuff. But if that's something you do want to do, it's definitely out there. But just for a high school student, it will take more legwork. in terms of networking and calling people, setting up informational sessions. So if you want templates for as to like how to network, definitely ask Mesfin to be put in the WhatsApp group and we can talk about that more. But I would just say internships aren't totally necessary, but they're out there if that's something you want to do. You just have to network to get them. And then someone asked, do colleges require taking the SAT or ACT or all or neither? So that depends on the school you're taking. Some within the last 3-4 years, a lot of colleges have gone test optional. My only advice would be to not, just because the school is test optional, to just not take a test. That doesn't, like we said before, if everyone is sending the test and their scores and you don't, the college will assume that your score is less than average. And if your score is average or more, you should send it in regardless. And just like I said last time, I went from a 21, which is very, very, very average, like basically the national average, to a 35, which is close to perfect. And so I just say that to give encouragement to all of you guys, that it's definitely possible to move your score up even from a very average one. So I'd encourage all of you to take a test, get that practice book. If your family is financially able, maybe find a tutoring test center near you, have them tutor you every week, and go about it that route, and not do the easy way and just not send a score. But that depends on the school you're applying to. Yeah, some are test optional, some are not. And then okay, and then someone asked, other than getting to know a college professor, what other things did you learn from the summer classes that you took? That's a very good question. I think I just learned how to write a paper. And that may seem simple, but I think I learned very well how to write a college level paper, as well as just writing in a way that was concise and articulate, and writing about one thing and not many things, and doing that very well and concisely. So obviously, with these summer sessions, you get the added benefit of, getting a professor to support your college application directly. Obviously, there's an educational learning benefit to that. Really, just challenging yourself in high school and taking college level work. The main benefit that I got out of it. Okay, and then someone asked, also for future questions, you're free to unmute yourself and put your camera on, and we can have a conversation. But this question says, do you recommend studying the SAT book versus online? The reason is I prefer studying online nowadays. So I guess I don't know. I can't tell you, without having a conversation with you, what your studying style is like. What helped me the most is I'm a very relationship oriented person, and so we were blessed enough to be able to use that tutoring service. So that helped me the most, having somebody who was interested in my development and who pushed me every week. That helped me the most. But as far as just online studying, I don't know. I haven't used that like College Board resource. But if you're seeing your scores improve, and if it makes sense to you, then you should definitely take advantage of that. But yeah, the only benefit of taking it from an SAT book is that it's very, very, very similar to what you're gonna have test day. So test day, you're gonna go in, you're gonna have to follow instructions. Everyone puts their phone out, for the teacher to have, and then you go about taking the test that way. So as far as just prepping yourself mentally for handling the stress of the test, a paper book may serve you better. But as long as your scores are improving, and if it's not broke, you don't need to fix it. But that's what I would say for that. And then someone asked, what grade do you recommend the summer classes? So the summer sessions are for juniors in high school. So I'm sure you can probably hop on the boat right now. So Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Duke, Johns Hopkins, even like George Mason, they will, have summer sessions open. So you can apply to them. And if you do apply, you should apply now. They should be closing soon. But yeah, obviously the benefit is if there's a school that's selective and slightly out of your reach, you can pull that school back into your reach by getting a letter of recommendation from a professor who's already there. That's the benefit of going to these sessions. And then someone asked, is the PSAT the same as the SAT test? So it's more or less the same, yeah. It's just a practice version of the SAT, of what you'll take on test day. But it's a good gauge of where you're at now.
One more question, Henok, that you missed. Should we pursue non-academic activities that we enjoy, such as the art, even if they are not what we want to study?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you're good at it and you enjoy it, and we talked a lot about passion last time, definitely go for it. Not every extracurricular you put on your Common App has to be tied to what you want to study or your main talent. But you can have side interests, and that's totally fine. Just make sure that you don't have too many side interests, if that makes sense. But having a handful is fine. And then, yeah, to the extent that any of you guys want to ask a prolonged or personal question, now's the time to unmute yourself and ask. I'm totally open. There are no stupid questions. So if there's something personal to you, go ahead and share. May help the others on the call. And this can be from today or last time, right? Really anything. Or if you're more comfortable, you can type it. But so somebody asked, do you recommend going to a college during high school for yeah, do you recommend going to college during high school if you get the letter? So what do you mean? If you could explain.
Basically it's during late sophomore year, but majority for your junior year and senior year, you could continue going to high school, but like you would stop after like fourth period and go to a college and like finish like your AP credits there while
Okay.
doing high school credits.
Oh, is this dual enrollment? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely a lot of people at my school have done that. So to the extent that you're doing it in a subject that you like, and you're doing well and enjoying it, definitely go for it. Any opportunity that you can challenge yourself, just in general, any opportunity that you have to challenge yourself, take it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a good question. And then somebody asked, how do I visit colleges? So, I mean, any of y'all are free to visit Yale if that's what you want to do. The summer sessions, the Harvard summer sessions, Yale summer sessions, Duke summer sessions are good ways to see if you'd really enjoy it. But like I said last time, all of you are diverse talent. So all of you should Google, flying programs, liberal arts schools 2022. If you are like first, actually, this should be for my juniors, keep this in mind for next year. So when you're a first quarter senior, you should be applying to all of these flying programs. So for example, University of Pennsylvania flew me out for free. Williams flew me out for free. Bowdoin flew me out for free. So a lot of top schools are very, very hungry for diverse talent. And so all of you, when you're first quarter seniors, please write this down, put this on your calendars, but apply to these flying programs. They'll fly you out for free. They'll pay for your ticket, your train ticket or plane ticket, and you get to live as a college student. Great way to see if you'd really like the school for real. And all of these schools have good financial aid programs as well. So just keep in mind flying programs for your first quarter senior year. That's a free way to visit schools. And then the second thing to write down, all of you should write this down, is the Institute for East African Councils for Education. I think it's something like the IEEAC, but they're a nonprofit in DC. They take Abisha students mainly in the DMV, and they train them and they take them for college visits for free across the East Coast. And they'll also help you with their essays and things like that. So if you're ambitious and you think you're smart, that'd be a great way to be connected with other Abishas in your school year and visit colleges for free, get some college help as well. So that's how you visit colleges for free. But they also have virtual information sessions. So UVA has virtual information sessions on their admissions website. UChicago has virtual information sessions. You just need to take some time out of your day and look at their admissions websites. But that's another way to get a virtual visit. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. So Institute of East African Education, flying programs, and then virtual information sessions is how I would tackle that.
Do you have any information about interviews, what kind of schools require them, what kind of schools recommend them, and what they usually look like?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I had to interview for Yale. So interviews will basically be for more of the top schools, if that makes sense. So like the Ivies, probably Duke, those sorts of caliber schools will have interviews. As far as what the interviewer asked me, they're really testing two things. They're testing your passion and commitment for the school. So basically you need to have a written out reason for why the school. And so for me, my reason was, I was a junior. I went there for my summer session. I fell in love with the architecture. Really loved my professors there. Really gave me a taste of what I wanted out of my education. And so I already knew like this was a school for me. And then I talked about like the key is being specific, right? So you want to be as specific as possible. So like I name dropped my professor to the extent that you can name drop, people, do that. I'd also recommend like doing very like deep research into like the school. So I mentioned a particular books program that I really liked. I mentioned like specific collection in the library that I wanted to look at. Like those types of details are what will distinguish you from other people who interview. And then what was the other part of your question?
I think that was kind of it.
Okay, but yeah, just be specific as you can be, and then have your like story out, if that makes sense. So they're also going to test you not just for a commitment for the school, but they're going to test your, passion for what you want to study. And so they want, demonstrated interest, like in your potential major, if that makes sense. And they want to basically, if there's stuff that you put on your application that you don't have evidence for, or when they ask you about it, like they may ask you like, what got you interested in XYZ club? And if your only reason for getting into that club was it looked good for a college app, they'll sniff that out right away. So this is why I encourage all of you to only put things down on your application that you're passionate about. So if you're passionate about it, regardless of what the interview asks you, you'll be ready to answer them. But they just want demonstrated interest in the school. So be prepared. Why the school? Do your research, and then demonstrated interest in your passions. So be able to talk about what you love. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And are you expected to like know what your major is going to be and do extracurriculars towards that major?
Yeah. So did you have a chance to go to the first session?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So the first session, I talked a lot about like how to frame your application overall. So I mean, Mesfin has a recording, it's on YouTube. But I would just say, I guess Mesfin, you can add her to the group chat, but I would just look at that recording. I talk a lot about how to frame your application overall. But yeah, the general idea for the Common App is you want a spike. Like colleges do not want well-rounded students. They want students who are very passionate about one main thing and then just happen to have side interests. And so for me, I was very big on the humanities and like English and literature in high school. And so I did like literature club. I led a reading group. So most of what I did, like 60-70% of what I did had to do with my main talent. So that's how I would frame your application. Competitive schools don't want well-rounded students. They want people with spikes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. And then I'm happy to take any more personal questions. Feel free to unmute yourself. We can take a couple more before we wrap up today.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So let's say if your high school so I go to an IB high school.
Okay.
And we have an IB program. Would you recommend like, doing that program, but like it starts 11th grade?
Yeah. So just like I said before, to the extent that you can challenge yourself, take any opportunity to do that. The only caveat is that the competitive schools want your GPA to be on an upward trend. So even if like your grades on paper, go down technically, hopefully because it's an IB class, the bonus of will overcompensate that for your GPA. So as long as your GPA is increasing slowly, you'll be fine. And an IB program is a great way to do that. Just obviously, take care of your mental health and exercise and manage your time well. But yeah, it'd be good. Okay, yeah.
I guess that's it, right? We don't have any more questions.
Yeah, so I guess the last one I'll take will be how to cope with test anxiety. So that's a good question. I guess I would just say exposure. So, printing, like I said, hopefully you have, or you can get access through Amazon or your Barnes and Noble close to you. Just grab a practice test book, obviously read the introductory material and then just take a test. So sit down on a Saturday afternoon rather than, wasting time on your phone. Just take that test. And once you every week get into the practice of sitting down, timing yourself and taking that test, you'll eventually get over, oh, I have to do this in a timed amount. And, you'll get over that stress sooner rather than later. So exposure would be the answer to that. And then for Isabella and everyone else who didn't get the chance to see the first session, if you go on YouTube and type in HK Education Network with Henok Nigatu, you can find that first session. Yeah, I would that session covered everything you need to know about the Common App. So I would go through that and take notes for those of you that couldn't attend, or for those of you that need a refresher. But yeah. So yeah, I think we're good.
We can conclude right now. Okay. Henok, thank you very much on behalf of the Habesha Kids Education Network. I would like to say thank you very much for commuting your time and presenting this educational and informative presentation. We really appreciate this. And I would also like to say thank you for all who attended this presentation. This presentation has been recorded and we will post it on Habesha Kids Club Viber group and on Habesha Kids Education Network group. And if you would like to be a part of the Habesha Kids Education Network group, we will post a link for you to join on Habesha Kids Club Viber group, and we'll post a link and then you can join the WhatsApp group. We'll be planning to do a presentation like this in the future with different topics about college admission. And I thank you everyone for your time, and thank you again, Henok, for your time. And we appreciate, and we will post the video soon. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Henok. We really appreciate you.
Oh yeah, of course.